Welcome to the channel. We usually travel around in this Mercedes Vario bus. The most recent thing that we've had to tackle is some rusty back doors. And today we're going to be taking them from drab, what could possibly go wrong, to hopefully fab. And I've got lots of questions as we go too. But what would you do? Would you powder coat them? So it doesn't bother me which way around it goes, but what would you do? Now, this isn't the first video that we've focused on this, so we've already taken stock of the current doors, which were absolutely destroyed, found some better ones that were refurbished, and began actually refurbishing them. And this video starting at the stage where I've already spent another day or two flatting, filling, fettling, welding, or Luke has, to get to the stage where we can paint them. And then we're going to be fitting them to the van and getting some pretty interesting gear installed, some of which is actual world's first. Moving swiftly on. I've never used a paint gun before. We're going to get straight into getting these in high build primer next. Now, I've gone for a white high build primer, reason being we're going to be spraying in white, and hopefully that should mean less coats of white paint needed to cover up what here we've got basically blue, green fiberglass, all sorts of stuff here that's quite dark. One thing that I have done, which we'll reveal later of why I've done it, is drilled 24 new holes in this door and 8 in that door over there. We'll get onto that later and how we're going to try and keep the water out from that too, because, you know, seemed like a good idea at the time, but I want to make sure that these things aren't going to rust. Obviously, our bus is not a Ferrari, so we're not going for a Ferrari finish on this, but I do want to make sure that it's as flat as possible. So I've been spending ages, and oh my gosh, if you've never done this before, it's miserable. Yeah, let's get it all dusted off. So I'm going to blow it down with the air gun, get on there with the panel wipes, tack rags, and then we'll get it primed up. Here, the main man, and he's insistent that I'm going to paint this myself.
Yep. You'll do as much as you can by yourself. So I'll talk you through the basics.
Okay.
So what we've done right now is the door's now been flatted. We finished them off in 180, 320 in parts if it's quite good. If it's filler, tend to just run over it with 320 grit. So the doors are pretty well prepped now. So now we can apply probably 2 coats of high build primer, and then we can flat that back, and then hopefully they'll be ready for Arctic Gloss White.
Great.
So what we're going to do is, you're going to paint them, because I don't have responsibility. So if you screw it up, it's a you problem.
I've never done it before. This seems like a really sensible idea.
So, HVLP spray gun, high volume, low pressure. Quite easy. Anybody can paint. All you want to do is just, you know, be sensible about it. So we want the gun about 6 inches away.
Okay.
And I don't want to see you doing this either.
Right.
Right. 90 degrees, 6 inches, all the way across with a 50-50 overlap.
Right.
And that is it.
That's all there is to it.
As simple as that. 50-degree overlap. 50% sort of overlap on the spray pattern. And yeah, just keep the gun parallel to what you're painting.
Okay.
Because what people do is they end up painting something and they'll go like this, woo! Right. And what you end up doing is having, and then what you're having is dry edges then.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll see how.
Do I do the edges first, or?
Normally I'll go around the edges first,
okay.
Yeah, and then move into the centre of the door.
That was a wild guess, and I got it right.
Nice work. That's what
50-50.
He's learning, isn't he?
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. Painted in this way is a little bit unusual for me, so I'm just going to voice over, because in the workshop it was super loud. I learnt 2 things essentially. Like, first and foremost, I wasn't holding the trigger down hard enough to release enough paint, so Luke corrected me with that, which is really helpful. And you actually have to go a lot slower than what you think. So you see it in all the movies, people waving it about, this, that and the other. It isn't like that. You need to take the 50% over, like Luke said, and then jobs are good. And I let that dry then off hard, actually longer than what you probably should, and flatted it back and left Luke to paint that up.
But we've just laid some paint on Richard's doors. So this is the first coat of paint that's just gone on. So if you guys are wondering what kind of paint we're using, so we're using a white, Arctic White direct gloss, 2-to-1 mixture with 20% thinners. Again, I think this is just I don't know where Rich got it from, probably an eBay special paint. Basically, providing that you got a decent gun and you know what you're doing, cheap paint can do the job just as well. The only thing with cheap paint compared to expensive paint is often you don't get the UV protection, so they fade quicker in the sun. But being white, if it was a black or something like that, then obviously being more worried, but being a white, it shouldn't be too bad at all. So we'll see how we go. So far it's going on lovely. That's mission accomplished on this one. If you guys would like to know a bit more about painting, maybe talk a little bit about the spray guns I use and all that sort of malarkey and technique and all that sort of stuff, then obviously I can do a video with Rich, YouTube vid of pointers of how to paint, because anybody can do it.
I left him a bit longer than what we would have liked because Kelly fell off her bike and it's taken her quite a while to get back to herself, and we went away. So we're back up here a month later. The doors are painted. Today I have fitted a new handle, painted the hinges and fitted those with new hardware, switched over the door mechanism, and now we're at the stage in the rain where we need to remove the old doors, which if you have a look here, you can see how bad they really are. So you've got holes in the bottom of them, all of the seams are shot, the hinges are pretty toasty as well, although they'll blast up nicely, so if anyone needs to buy a set of hinges, these will come up good. Yeah, let's get the old doors off and these finally on, because they're looking quite good. I'm actually excited about all of the storage and that aircon unit that we're going to end up fitting on the back. But why is it always bloody raining? It's literally the first week of July. Why is it so horrible out? Come on, Mr. Sunshine. This is why we want to go to Europe again. With that, Dave turned up, which was amazing. With that, 3 bolts off of each hinge and both doors were off. And they are in a hell of a state. Fitting the new doors was the opposite. So 3 bolts in each hinge. There was a little bit of to-ing and fro-in to get it lined up just right. And now I'm back home on the driveway with a little bit more adjustment to do. So that was pretty straightforward as well. You've got grub screws in here. You basically turn a tiny amount in and out and it just adjusts the gaps a little bit. You can see that it wasn't quite right. You could see daylight through the bottom, but honestly, like a turn and a quarter and that just sorts it out because the grub screw pushes the hinge back into place. And they're on. We're rust free. We want to keep it that way. So what I've done is filled them with Dynax S50. Which is this stuff, and it comes with this lance, which is useful because you can really get into the nooks and crannies and it fires it at 360 degrees. I did that a couple of hours ago now and it's all set. You just need to make sure, obviously it's going to run out of everywhere where there's a drain hole, which there are quite a few in here, but hopefully that should keep the rust at bay that's in there. Next thing that I need to do is think about the storage. Now you'll have noticed that I've drilled holes in all of the doors, and that is so I can fit unwind rail, but I'm going to try and do a little bit more with it actually by making those holes work both for the outside mounting points and the inside. And because there's 24 holes, I want to make sure they don't leak, and I've got an idea of how that's going to work. I've already cut the unwind rail down so it'll fit on the doors nicely, and I've decided to use this W4 mastic sealing strip. So I've put it on the back. I've used this on all of my skylights and all of that stuff, and it really does stop the water getting through. So I've laid it down flat on the pallet, trusty all-purpose pallet, laid the strip down, put it on it, then I pushed the bolts through, offered it up to the door, and then using a penny washer pulled it through. You can see here though where I've left one off why this works, because the mastic gets pulled through the door as well. Now they're all on here, you'll note that I've painted them as well. So this is in Raptor, just on the bits where you won't really have anything binding to it. It's all squidged out along the top. So what I'm going to do next is tape up, and I'm actually going to mastic along here as well with some flexible Puraflex 40. And then I've painted the end caps, and if by magic I've popped them on too. So this is going to be storage for a few bits and bobs we're going to show you later. Of course, great British weather, because it's summertime here. Put paid to that yesterday. Anyone else have any sunshine at all? Please let me know in the comments. So haven't sealed these up yet. We'll get onto that later though. We'll do it all in one go. What I have done is add tape to the door. You're probably wondering, why you added tape to the door? Well, we've got two things to add on the back here that are going to allow us to triangulate the weight between these two hinges and the door. So we're not having a lot of weight on the door. First one, if you've watched the channel before, is this trusty wheel carrier, which does need a new lick of paint. And then on this side, this is new. I've already tapped it out, painted it in Raptor, ready to go on the van. And this is going to fit around the box, mount up on here, thusly. And again, you can see here, you've got 3 points. You're basically triangulating the weight that's hanging on the door. So you've still got the same weight on the hinges, it's just being distributed in a different way. And you're not putting that pressure on the door skin because we'll have a big spreader plate behind it. This thing is going to hold an air conditioning unit, which I'm going to fit up, hopefully, for the actual summer weather to arrive. Kelly helped me dry fit them up, marked around with a Sharpie, and drilled through progressively larger holes, deburred all of that, and then I've just painted it over with some Hammerites. The next stage after all of that, and actually it looked quite good on, is I've taken them back off because I'm waiting for some paint to arrive. So I'm going to spray them up with some U-Pol Raptor. So we're just going to etch it up now, wait for that to arrive, and by the magic of editing, spray them up, and now they're back on the van along with the wheel. Big thanks to Roy Lewis from RL Metalworks for making both of these things. They fit a treat when he supplies them. Even the bolts come pre-greased with copper grease. Honestly, the guy's a legend, and they look so good. But on to the next thing now. But before I can do any of that aircon business, I need to finish up on the inside, and that isn't straightforward either. I started about 3 weeks ago. So legitimately, I measured up this hole whilst it was still up in Luke's workshop. Went back home, used my trusty track saw to cut out a square that should match the outer limits of the box. Cut up 4 sides to make the box, and then I've glued and screwed it all together, reinforcing it on the back with some extra ply. That is you.
Hi.
Yeah, you. Hot.
You're very red.
Yeah, it's hot. Front was popped on, and now, about a week later, now the doors are on, we can test to see whether it fits. Up the ladder I go. And there or thereabouts it does. It needs a little bit of sanding and finessing, especially around these mounting holes. And I've got a bit of trim to go around here to hide these screws and reinforce it a bit more too. But yeah, this is what's going to house? This is what's going to house our air conditioning unit, amongst other things. And because the timeline's a bit out, in the week I tried out something absolutely brand new, well, new to the Vario world, on the van on a not so sunny day. See you in a minute. Alright, so moving inside, you can see the door's pretty bare at the moment. We've obviously got these poking through. These are going to serve a purpose, which is why they're so long. And at the bottom, I've started with my next project. So talk about world's first. I've bought these from Wheeliams, the very first Molle panels for a Vario. So not for any van, sadly not a world first there, but for a Vario, the first ones, and they're in bare alley because I'm going to need to modify these for my purposes. which you'll see later. But usually they come black powder coated. So the way that these have been designed is to work with Molle like equipment, like pouches, hangers, this, that and the other, like you'd see on like military gear. So you can see that they're all cut out and you can hang your stuff on this. And the way that they've been designed is that they use existing mounting holes on the body. So what I've done is use one of my favourite tools, which is this, a riv nut tool, to insert M6 riv nuts in existing mounting points. So these are already drilled out. All I've done is popped the riv nut in, tighten it up, squeeze it down, give it a couple more turns, squeeze it down, and around you go. And then you've got a nice captive fitting in the body itself, and they should line up. So close, yet so far. All the ones this side line up. They're a little bit out of kilter as we go across. So these are the very first ones. I bought them weeks ago, so they've probably tweaked this out now. This is what you get for buying the first ones. But I'm going to drill these out to M8, and then we can just use this flanged M6 on this. We'll drill those out, and then that should solve my problem. But I don't want to risk that because you're going to cross thread all of those things. But they're cool, aren't they? A little bit of work, a little bit of modification, and away we go. What I can use these for is for making up my new door cards. But before I get around to making the door cards, I'm going to insulate the door. I bought some new stuff for that too, something I've not used before. You wanted it to be lightweight, cut down on noise, so we've gone with this stuff, which is like foil backed closed cell foam. Cutting this stuff is supposed to be like pretty straightforward, and it is. I wouldn't use scissors, it kind of gets scagged up and you get the sticky stuff everywhere. I got much more joy using the knife, and then when applying it, oh my goodness, it's a nightmare. So it's really quite a struggle to get it in any gaps. So where I needed to get around corners, I've actually got it laid in there with not all of the adhesive removed, and it's just in there under its own pressure, which is good because I can remove it as well. And then up on this door, I did use the sticky stuff and it looks quite good, and I'll just finish it off with some alley tape. I needed it to be 20mm because when the panels go on, I want them to obviously lay flush against this. Then around the edge at the bottom, this is just in there flat so I can remove it, inspect the door whenever I need to, and I've put some sheep's wool insulation around the outside. So the next thing I need to do is to get all of the door cards sanded. I've already varnished the back last week, varnished the front, and now we can get them fitted up. Like any end of any good project, the last fiddly bits took ages. So I decided with my head over my heart to Osmo oil the plywood instead, because you can see it comes out with a nice grain. Fitted up the door cards using some nice flanged hardware. That seems to resolve the problem of misaligned holes as well. And we fitted up all of the boxes and these neat little hook things, and everything ready for the aircon unit to go in here. As you can see, the Molle panels are just in bare alley at the moment. Bought them, cut these out here so I can fit 2 bikes in the back as well, which we'll show you in a future video. But what would you do? Would you powder coat them? Would you paint them? Would you leave them bare? Let me know. I'm in 3 minds of what to do with them really. For now, they're on, and we're going to make good use of them. And over on the other door, I can show you what we've been up to. You can see at the top, I fitted in my ladder. So we've got that on, some hooks I managed to find, nice and secure, with the eyes that I've put in at the top. And then at the bottom, I've started to use the Molle panel, and I don't know what else I'm going to put on here. Again, anything that you've got, let me know. But we've got our chairs on here, space for some tool rolls, stuff like that. It's fair to say I've got quite a lot of cleaning up to do around the door, so it is pretty grubby. And there's a few areas around here which are rust stained from the old doors that I need to sort out too. So I'm going to do that. Don't worry, this will all be nice and pretty. I've just run out of time today. And that brings me on to the next thing, which I want your advice on. So I've bought this Dakin toolbox and I'm not sure which way to mount it on my back doors. So I've got two options. Okay, so would you, let me just close up the door. Would you pop it this way around, or would you put it this way around? I can see pluses and minuses for either. I'm a short guy. Either way, I'm going to need the ladder to be able to get into it anyway. So it doesn't bother me which way around it goes, but what would you do? And then any other ideas, do let me know. I am packing up for the day. You can watch the next video when it comes out in a week or two's time, or watch more of my videos up here. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care. I'll see you soon.